Daniels, and today I'm here on behalf of Labette Community College's public speaking course. This evening, I would like to inform you on why you should say no to student loan reimbursement. I say this because of many different reasons that I will point out later on, but it's just like if someone were to hand you a gob of cash and say, go spend it how you like, but later on you have to give it back, so spend it wisely. That's how student loans work. When you take out a student loan, whether they're from private people or the federal government, in return they have to be paid back. And reimbursement programs that people are trying to pass today that I am against are basically a slap on the hand saying, oh, it's all free. Well, I think that student loan reimbursement just hurts us more in the end, and that is what I would be speaking on. The student loans could be definitely improved a lot if people worked harder and just looked at their possibilities out there, because student loan reimbursement programs are everywhere. If you meet criteria, they're easier to make, but they're not for everybody. Saying yes to programs like that do more hurt than they do good, and that is why I am against them and why I will be informing you why you should vote no against them. They sound jolly, they sound great, but in reality, they're only taking away from us more than they take away from us if we were to just keep the student loan we already had. So, to start it off today, I will be discussing them as a whole and then how they hurt us more than they do if they were to be forgiven. So, for starters, let's discuss student loans in general. Student loans can come in many forms and from many different places in the world, and that is why they are so common, and that's why people take them out so easily. When you don't have enough money to pay for school or the access of living or anything while you're in school, these student loans are there to help you. According to the website nerdwallet.com, student loans are money you borrow from the federal government or private people in order to help with school, your cost of living, tuition, books, supplies you need, and anything else that college as a whole entails. So, those student loans are most of the time spent kind of for that reason, but if you get a loan for extra money, they're just wasted. Therefore, that's why you owe them back. They're to help you when you don't have it in the moment. With that being said, most of our federal student loans come from the federal government in the forms of subsidized and unsubsidized loans. And this means that they are coming from the country as a whole. So our federal income is putting them out, but in return, until they're paid back, that federal government is still out that money, and so are all of us living in the government. If they're not repaid, then the money never goes out. Like, if they're never repaid, the money that goes out never comes back in. Therefore, they take it from our different areas of life, which we already pay into the Social Security and stuff like that. So the money that wouldn't be repaid to make up the debt, if they were all forgiven, which is a gob of money, would just be taken away from us later on in life in different, more important areas. And that is why I think that they shouldn't be just a slap on the hand and all forgiven, because according to the student aid website, which is where you go to apply for federal aid, there are 45 million borrowers of cash, and that equals $1.6 trillion of the federal income. So if $1.6 trillion is never paid back because of student debt and it's just all forgiven, that money never comes back in. Therefore, it gets taken out of many areas of life, and it'll get taken from you later on one way or another. So I feel it's just easier to take the money and the load you already owed rather than it growing interest and everything and just coming back to bite you in the end because of these forgiveness loans. The money could be taken out in taxes, and they could just be taken out of checks, everything later on you wouldn't even know because it just look like the federal government is taking it. There are ways to avoid these loans, and that is with scholarships, working your tail off in school, or you can just ultimately just go get a job and save money, and that takes away from a lot of money needed for student loans, therefore lowering not only your student loan debt, but everybody's, which would lower the $1.6 trillion we all owe. So now that we have talked about the loans, where they come from, the forms of them, and what will happen if the money is not repaid and the money's for everyone, let's talk about the programs that are already there that people don't take the time to look into and don't take advantage of, that are already there in order to help repay the student loans. So we've looked into ways to avoid paying loans by these programs that are just taking it all away. But there's programs already that have been offered that allow you to decrease your student loan or get on plans where your student loan's paid off faster, or just to get on things that just ultimately your student loan, it keeps you on track of paying them off to where you were held responsible, you did what you signed a contract for, and that's it, they're done. So according to the student aid website that I mentioned earlier, there are many different repayment plans. Some of them don't start till after you're graduated. Some start from the day you take the loan out and just grow interest and don't need a payment till after you graduate. Or some of them you pay off while you're in school, but they're in small increments so you can afford them as a college student. Some of them are after you get out of school, but they start lower as you're starting off life, and every few years they just get higher payments until they're ultimately paid off. Some of them have a gap where you can pay so much on it, and if that so much is paid off a certain amount of years, it just knocks off a whole part of your student loan, which that would help a lot. So all these different programs that the federal aid offers, where you're getting your money from, people are not taking advantage of. Therefore, they're just letting themselves get so far in debt, or they're not even trying to repay it. And when you don't repay it, then or you don't take advantage of these programs, then you're just wasting your own time, and you're not doing what you're able to in order to decrease your student debt. There are also different employers and professions that will pay off your student loan as long as you sign a contract saying, I'll work for you for a certain amount of years, or I will contract out for you anything. A lot of people do that. And some that are the most common are nurses, doctors, army, all of them types of professions. If you sign a contract saying you'll go with them for a certain amount of years, they will pay off everything you owe. And I think that is so cool, because a lot of people don't even realize that that's an option. So the nursing home I personally worked for, they said after a year of me working for them, they would pay for my tuition, my books, and to get me through the nursing program. So I thought that was cool. And then a local hospital towards home, if you finish schooling, all your schooling, and you don't work for them during it, but if you come to them fresh graduate, say a nurse, and you work for them for 3 to 5 years, they will pay off everything. And so not only will you be making the good money you went to school for, but you'll never owe student debt again. The student aid website said there's also teacher loan forgiveness, public service loan, where you can do public service to forgive your loans you owe, an income driven, so if you don't make a lot and you went to school, you can get forgiveness on them. If you were in the army, like I said, or just any type of military service, then they're forgiven as long as you go contract out. So there are many programs between the federal government and just employers and everything that would give you opportunities to relieve this $1.6 trillion deficit that we are in, and that could be relieved if we just looked into opportunities and worked our tails off a little harder instead of getting everything handed to us for free. That would ultimately cut down the debt we're in, and wouldn't need the option of a program for a full student loan reimbursement program out there. So now that we have talked about student loans as a whole, the types of them, the amount of money, and the programs people overlook to repay them without just being free, I will now speak on the responsibility aspect they give us that will ultimately be taken away if we get them all for free. If we get student loans forgiven because they are a lot of money and we can't handle it, then that's ultimately taking away an investment we made in ourselves, an investment we made in our future, an investment we made in everything else we're going to do in life. If we can't handle student loans, to get us to the career, to buy other things. We're never going to be able to stay committed to an investment in a car, a house, anything like that. So it just takes away your accountability to pay this back before you can pay something bigger back. It just helps us stay held accountable and everything. So when you take that away by just saying, oh, all of these are relieved just because it's a large amount of money, you're taking away the investment made in ourselves and just ultimately everything we've worked for. Even though it sounds bad, we had to pay all that money back. They're good for us. We all signed a promissory note when we signed up for federal aid, and that was saying that you promised to pay it back and that you promised to ultimately get back your investment in yourself because of what you became. And I feel like when you sign that note, that's a commitment and that's everything. So if you just pay all this back in a program and you take away money from us, other people that need it, other opportunities in our government, everything, you're ultimately taking away your commitment you made to not only yourself but everybody when you said you'd pay back the money you were loaned to become something of yourself. If you can't handle signing up for a student loan and paying it back and you just expect it to be free, then you're gonna have a tough time in life because nothing's free. And I've personally never had anything handed to me, so that's why I see it that way. But I feel like student loan reimbursement programs are just hurting us and taking away our commitment we make to anything in life at that age. So my point is, with a little bit of hard work, dedication, and accountability, everyone has the ability to pay back their student loans, no matter the time frame may be different, the amount being paid may be different, anything. But I feel like everybody with the programs and everything are able to pay back their student loans no matter the time frame. Today I've discussed why we should all vote no towards getting full reimbursement programs back and all of our student loans forgiven. I am all for working for the payment to be forgiven, like doing work contracts and everything, but I'm not for the free everything and being taken away from other aspects and ultimately biting us in the rear in the end. A slap on the wrist is never good for anybody, and losing accountability and everything at this age by getting everything free will really just be detrimental to everybody. I encourage you all to say no to these full reimbursement of student loans, because a lot of responsibilities develop off of student loans, and ultimately if you can't be held responsible, like I said earlier, with the commitment to pay back an investment in yourself, you'll never be able to make a commitment to something bigger in life, and that'll ultimately be an issue. The loan debt will come back one way or another in the end, so the free will only last a certain time. So the full reimbursement with no work is no good, and it will come back, and with no work, and it hurts you emotionally in the end without you seeing it right then with the word free in your face. The loan forgiveness and the contracts paid off are good, and I think that that's why we should just work a little bit harder and not even consider the free loan reimbursements, because they're detrimental to us in all aspects of life. Thank you.